So yeah, this one's definitely on the small side for 2025. But the rear, yeah, that's where things get a little disappointing. You'd think you were sitting in something like a Mercedes S-Class. This is absolutely gorgeous. It might get a bit bouncy or unsettled, especially over rough pavement. So it kind of makes me wonder, is Onvo's L90 really positioned below the main NIO lineup? And wow, just wow. NIO absolutely nailed the interior design here. This kind of setup usually improves handling dynamics too, and I bet it makes the L90 feel surprisingly agile for its size. Now, if you were hoping for a premium branded audio system, I've got some bad news. Then there are a few missing comfort features. Hey everyone, so NIO's new budget-friendly sub-brand Onvo just dropped their latest full-size electric SUV, the L90, and honestly, the market response has been surprisingly positive. To be honest, I didn't expect that. See, in China, when people go for a big SUV, they're usually thinking about long road trips. And because of that classic EV concern, range anxiety and charging stress, most folks lean toward plug-in hybrid full-size SUVs. That's why if you look around, nearly every big SUV you see on the road is a PHEV. Actually, I did a full comparison video of these plug-in giants before, so if you're curious, feel free to click the link up here. But now, Onvo comes out swinging with a pure EV in this ultra-competitive segment that takes guts. So today, we're diving in to see what this L90 is all about and what exactly it's bringing to the table. Now, in terms of size, the L90 isn't actually that big. It's just 5.15 meters long, which is noticeably shorter than most of the 9 Series SUVs from other brands. A lot of those stretch beyond 5.2 meters, and some even push close to 5.3. So with that kind of length disadvantage, does it compromise interior space? Well, we'll check that out a bit later. We'll get into more of the detailed specs toward the end of the video, but for now, let's take a look at the exterior. The L90 sticks with a pretty traditional SUV shape, even though there's no engine under the hood because, well, it's fully electric. It still keeps a long front end, kind of like it should have an engine. Up front, you've got a split headlight design just like on the L60. The daytime running lights sit up top, while the main dual projector matrix headlights are down below. And being an EV, of course, it gets a closed-off grille. The whole front fascia actually reminds me a bit of the Denza N9. Now, personally, I'm not really a fan of the design. I think it looks kinda awkward, but hey, styling is totally subjective. If you like it, that's what really matters. Down at the very bottom, there's actually an active grille shutter. Now, it doesn't look active from the outside. It's got that closed-off design, but the opening and closing mechanism is tucked away behind it. Right in the center of that grille, you'll also find a 4D millimeter wave radar sensor, which is part of the car's advanced driver assistance system. And if you look at the front bumper, you'll notice these air channels cut into both corners. That's NIO trying to squeeze out every bit of aerodynamic efficiency while still sticking to a more traditional SUV silhouette. So yeah, even though it's boxier than some smaller rivals, they've clearly put some effort into managing airflow. Now, if you look up top, you'll spot these two little horns sticking out from the roof. Those are actually dual cameras for the driver assist system. Just like the L60, the L90 doesn't come with any LiDAR, and it's only running a single Orin chip for its autonomous driving brain. So if you're really into cutting-edge self-driving tech, this might not be the car for you. Now let's talk tires, because this setup tells us a lot about how the L90 is engineered. So the Onvo L90 comes with a staggered tire setup. Up front, you've got 255/50 R21s, and in the rear, it bumps up to 275/45 R21s. And yes, they're Michelin Pilot Sport EVs, which is their high-performance EV line, super grippy and designed for low rolling resistance. Now you might be wondering, why staggered tires on what looks like a family-focused SUV? Well, there's a reason. The L90 comes in both rear-wheel drive and all-wheel drive variants. If you go rear-wheel drive, you're looking at a wild 462 horsepower, and the AWD version only adds about 136 horsepower to bring it up to 598 total. So this thing is very rear-biased in how it delivers power. That explains the beefier rear tires. It's there to handle all that torque and give you solid traction under acceleration. This kind of setup usually improves handling dynamics too, and I bet it makes the L90 feel surprisingly agile for its size. Unfortunately, NIO isn't offering test drives just yet, so I can't verify that for you, at least not today. But I'm definitely looking forward to getting behind the wheel when they open it up. Let's talk suspension because there's some interesting stuff going on here. The Onvo L90 is rocking a front double wishbone and rear multi-link independent suspension setup, which is what you'd expect in a vehicle that wants to feel premium and handle well. Now, this specific display model is fitted with a closed single-chamber air spring setup paired with CDC adaptive dampers. Given that Onvo is NIO's more budget-conscious sub-brand, going with a single-chamber system makes sense from a cost perspective. The big question though, is the air suspension standard across all trims? Right now we don't know. So keep an eye out for that if you're speccing one of these. Up front, the suspension components actually look pretty serious. It appears to be mostly aluminum. The upper and lower control arms are thick and finished in silver, which is typically a good sign for performance and weight savings. That should definitely help the L90 feel sharper behind the wheel. But the rear, yeah, that's where things get a little disappointing. Everything I can see back there is made of black stamped steel. So we're talking higher unsprung mass. Combine that with a single chamber air spring, and I'm honestly a little worried about how it'll feel for third row passengers. It might get a bit bouncy or unsettled, especially over rough pavement. Still, it's too early to judge without driving it. But this suspension layout definitely gives us some clues about where Onvo chose to invest versus where they had to cut back. Peeking through the rear wheels, we can actually spot a pretty major structural detail. The entire rear section of the body appears to be made with mega casting or integrated die casting. Now, that's a technique that offers a nice balance between weight reduction and structural rigidity. It also helps free up space in the chassis, which can be really valuable in a three-row SUV like this. But, and this is important, just because a car uses mega casting doesn't mean it's going to have great NVH performance. I mean, take the Xpeng G6 for example. That car also uses a rear mega cast structure, but the NVH in the backseat, yeah, kinda underwhelming. So while this is a cool bit of tech, it doesn't guarantee a quiet, refined ride. We're definitely gonna have to wait until we get behind the wheel to see how the L90 actually performs in the real world. Unlike vehicles under the main NIO brand, the Onvo L90 actually comes with standard GBT charging ports, both AC and DC. Yep, no weird omissions here. Just pop open the flap and everything you need is right there. Inside there's a little button with the Onvo logo that lets you close the flap, which is a nice touch. But no lighting. That's a bit of a miss, especially if you're pulling up to a dark charging station at night. You're gonna wish they took a page out of Zeekr's playbook and threw in a light. Coming around to the back, you'll notice the same taillight design we saw on the L60. Nothing too flashy, but it does the job. Right in the center is a massive Onvo logo, and just below the L90 badge on the left, there's a red underline. That might hint this display unit is an AWD performance trim, but hey, that's just my guess, don't quote me on it. Starting from the bottom, there's what looks like an aerodynamic diffuser, and just above the license plate area, you've got a camera for the 360-degree view system. The tailgate release is also tucked in there at a pretty reasonable height. And up top, a nicely hidden rear wiper, clean, simple, and gives the back window a super tidy look. Pop open the tailgate and you'll see that the cargo space is pretty average. Even though the L90 is slightly shorter than most full-size SUVs, coming in at just 5.15 meters, it doesn't really fall behind in practicality. I measured about 55 centimeters in depth, 116 centimeters wide, and 77 centimeters tall. But here's where things get interesting. Lift up the floor panel and there's a huge hidden compartment underneath. And smartly, Onvo added a little slot to prop the lid open, freeing up both hands to dig around inside. According to the official numbers, that underfloor space gives you a solid 106 liters. For reference, a typical 20-inch carry-on suitcase holds about 40 liters. This compartment goes over 40 centimeters deep, about 60 centimeters wide, and more than 20 centimeters across at the narrowest point. So yeah, you can absolutely drop an entire carry-on in there and still have room left for a bunch of smaller items around it. And if you need to haul something even bigger, you can just fold down the third row seat backs with the push of a button that gives you up to 1 meter of cargo depth. Basically the same as what you'd get in a large 5-seater SUV. Over on the right side of the cargo area, you've got a small control panel with a few handy buttons. 2 of them are for power folding and raising the third row seat backs, and there's one more that lets you drop the air suspension for easier loading. Super helpful when you're hauling heavier stuff. On the left side, there's a larger cover panel. Pop that open and you'll find a 12-volt power outlet and yes, a standard 220-volt household plug. Personally, I'd prefer that 220-volt outlet to be somewhere inside the cabin. It'd be a lot more convenient for passengers to use while driving or camping. Now look closely at the outer edges of the cargo bay. There are 2 tie-down points down low, and up top on both sides you'll find these cleverly hidden hooks about 50 centimeters off the floor. The idea here is that you can string a net between the upper hooks and the lower anchors to secure loose items. That's probably why the hooks are mounted so high, because otherwise you'd be wondering where the rest of the mounting points are. Yup, you won't find any others back here. One feature I really appreciate is the air suspension's quick height adjustment. Let me show you. Lowering the rear takes about 5 seconds and raising it back up around 6. That's really snappy and actually faster than what we saw on the Xpeng G9. If you're curious, I did a full demo of that in my G9 video. You can check it out by tapping the link in the top right corner. Now, if you're still thinking the rear cargo space isn't quite enough, don't worry, because this right here is the headline feature of the L90, quite possibly the largest frunk on any production vehicle in the world. First off, the hood is fully power operated. Yep, open and close at the push of a button. Or just knock knock. That alone makes this front trunk way more usable than most, especially when your hands are full. But what really blows my mind is just how massive this thing is. We're talking big enough to function as a literal 4th row of seats. I'm not kidding. You could actually sit 2 average-sized adults in here. And as you can see, this demo unit already has a bunch of stuff stored in it. I moved some things around and yep, climbed right in myself. The opening is about 80 centimeters wide. And if I scoot over a bit, I could probably fit another person beside me, assuming they're not too bulky. I mean, this might be the most practical frunk ever put in a production car. And thanks to the low lift design of the hood, you don't have to awkwardly hoist your heavy luggage overhead and aim for a tiny cutout like you do with other EVs. Just walk up, load it in at hip level, and close it with a button. No slamming, no neighbors thinking you're wrenching on your engine again. And NIO really didn't stop there. Down at the bottom of the frunk, there's actually a built-in drain plug, which means you can rinse it out if it gets dirty. Super useful if you're hauling muddy gear or just want to clean things out. Oh, and check this out. They even added cup holders. Yeah, cup holders in the frunk, 1 on each side. I guess it's ready for your next tailgate party. Up front, looking up, the frunk lid itself almost acts like a sunshade when it's open. And to keep things quiet, NIO added insulation padding under the hood, probably to reduce any rattling from your luggage rolling around. Nice touch. Now here's the quirky part. There are 2 buttons to close the frunk lid, both right there. Technically, you only need to press the outer one, since the inner one doesn't really do anything different. Feels like a bit of overkill. Maybe NIO went a little too hard on the frunk budget, but hey, I'm not complaining. Alright, now let's hop inside and wow, just wow. NIO absolutely nailed the interior design here. The moment you open the door, this doesn't feel like a budget-friendly vehicle at all. It feels straight up luxurious. Check out the stitching on the door panels, the matte metal speaker grille, the wood and metal trim combo. It all just looks so high-end. And the ambient lighting, yeah, it's daytime right now, so I can't really show you, but here's a shot from the official promo. It's all soft, indirect lighting that gives the cabin this super cozy vibe. There's even a strip running across the top wood trim that continues all the way to the 3rd row, so passengers in the back don't feel left out. Honestly, if you judge this car by the interior alone, You'd think you were sitting in something like a Mercedes S-Class. This is absolutely gorgeous. One small but super important detail, the emergency mechanical door release. It's right here on the door panel, clearly visible and marked with a yellow sticker. I've got to say, this is hands down the most thoughtfully designed emergency release I've seen in any car. No hunting around, no hidden panels, just obvious and functional. Good job, NIO. This is how it should be done. The L90 comes with 3 interior color options, beige, black and brown. Personally, I think the brown looks the best. It just works so well with the ambient lighting, really dialing up the premium vibes in here. Now, if you were hoping for a premium branded audio system, I've got some bad news. The L90 only comes with NIO's in-house speaker setup. Sure, it's Dolby Atmos certified, which sounds impressive, but to be honest, it doesn't quite match up to what you'd get from one of those high-end international audio brands. The window glass, double pane acoustic glass all around, like front and rear, no sneaky cost cutting here where the rear gets downgraded, and all 4 doors are soft close too, just like they should be. That said, we still don't know if everything you see on this show car will actually come standard, so keep that in mind. The door handles are touch sensitive. Just rest your hand on them and the doors automatically unlock and pop open. Super slick. I gotta give credit here, this is a nice touch. And right as the door unlocks and pops open, the power running boards swing out automatically. Makes getting in and out a whole lot easier, especially if you've got kids or elderly passengers. It's a small detail, but it adds a big dose of everyday convenience. Climbing inside, the first thing I noticed is that, just like what Li Auto's doing, there's no traditional driver display here. Instead, they're going all in on an AR head-up display. Now, I get it. Some folks might still want that digital cluster behind the wheel. But trust me on this, once you get used to a good head-up display, you'll never look down at a gauge cluster again. The steering wheel follows the same theme as the rest of the interior. It's got this really nice two-tone design. Front and center, you've got a 17.2-inch LCD display running on Qualcomm's A295P chip. So yeah, the system feels pretty quick and responsive. The air vents are fully hidden and electrically controlled, which means you get features like auto sweep and anti-direct blast modes. It's a slick setup, but honestly I still prefer the reflective style vents you get in the Xpeng G7. They just feel a bit more gentle and comfortable on the skin. Personal preference, of course. Just below the screen there's a little hidden storage pocket, and right underneath that you'll find 2 50-watt wireless charging pads with built-in cooling by a super practical touch. Off to the side, there's a pair of cup holders that are now connected, so if you're not using them for drinks, they double as a spot to toss smaller items. Now, because there's a fridge right underneath, the center armrest storage isn't super deep, kind of expected, but inside you'll find 2 USB-C ports and even a TF card slot. Yep, that means you can just pop in a card here to store your dash cam or sentry footage. That's a really thoughtful touch. I like it. Right below the center console, there's another storage area, decent size, and it's got a 12-volt outlet tucked inside. And over on the passenger side, the glove box is power operated, which feels super slick. You can even set a passcode on it, so it's a great spot to stash valuables if you're heading out. The headliner is finished in Alcantara and comes in black, a favorite color for many. There's a camera mounted up top, but no physical button to control the sunshade. You'll have to use the infotainment system or voice commands to open or close it. Unfortunately, there's no digital rear view mirror either, which is a bit of a letdown because once the rear screen is down, your view out the back is pretty much gone. The seats are wrapped in Nappa leather, and yeah, they feel as good as they sound. Super soft and premium to the touch without feeling greasy or overly slick. There's this plush top layer, probably around 2 centimeters thick, so when you sit down you kind of sink right into it. But the underlying support is on the firmer side, which might not be everyone's cup of tea, myself included, to be honest. Both the first and second rows come with ventilation, heating and massage, while the third row only gets heating. Now the massage function, it's there, but the intensity is pretty light. It's better than nothing, but definitely nowhere near the kneading style massage you get in the G9. Seat adjustments are on the door panel, and if you're coming from a Mercedes, this setup will feel instantly familiar. Personally, I think this layout just makes more sense. You don't have to fumble around the side of the seat trying to find the right button. It's all right there in front of you. Of course, this kind of design usually adds cost, which is probably why you don't see it on all of NIO's premium models. So it kind of makes me wonder, is Onvo's L90 really positioned below the main NIO lineup? Now let's hop into the back seats and take a look. The rear door panels stick with the same design language as the front. Super clean, upscale, and nicely put together. And hey, here's something I really appreciate. The emergency mechanical door release is still fully exposed and easy to use. No cheap plastic cover nonsense like we saw on the Xpeng. Props to NIO for keeping safety features functional and not skimping here. The second row seats are captain's chairs, pretty standard at this size class. And the comfort and materials are right on par with what we got up front. I've kept the driver's seat in my usual driving position, and I didn't even slide the second row seat all the way back just to save some room for the third row. Even so, I still have over 20 centimeters of legroom back here. The seat cushion is long and high enough to fully support my thighs, which is really nice. There's also a ton of foot room under the front seats, I can easily stretch my legs forward. And yeah, for a 3-row SUV like this, headroom in the first and second rows is never really an issue, so I'm not even gonna bother measuring it. Wow, there's a lot happening back here. So first off, the second row air vents are mounted up in the ceiling, which is pretty typical for a vehicle this size. That said, I personally still prefer when they're built into the B pillars. Just feels a bit more direct and easier to aim. Now let's talk about the rear entertainment screen. It's mounted right in the center of the headliner, but at first glance it looks a bit undersized. I checked later and yep, it's just 17.3 inches. That's only 0.1 inch bigger than the center display up front. These days, most rear screens in this class are pushing 21.4 inches, and the Lynk&Co 900 even goes all the way to 30. So yeah, this one's definitely on the small side for 2025. Not sure why NIO didn't go with the bigger panel. Maybe it was a cost-saving move. But hey, if you'd be willing to give up something else in exchange for a larger screen, let us know down in the comments. And just below, tucked behind the center console, there's another screen. This one's an 8-inch full-color touchscreen. It handles most of the rear seat functions like climate and seat controls, but you can also watch videos or stream music on it, which is pretty neat. Underneath that panel, check this out. 3 USB-C ports, yep, not 2, 3. The middle one is actually for screencasting, so you can plug in a USB-C cable to mirror content from a laptop or a tablet straight to the rear entertainment display. The other 2 are standard charging ports for your phone or other gadgets. Pretty thoughtful setup back here. And just below that, you've got the fridge, and yes, it's got power open and close, which is awesome. The capacity is seriously impressive too. You can actually stand a 330 milliliter Coke can upright in there with no problem, which tells you this was thoughtfully designed. It's not just a gimmick, it's super practical. Only the back of the front passenger seat gets the fold-out tray table. The driver's side doesn't have one. Instead, there's just a magnetic mounting point back there. Now on to something even cooler. The right side second row seat has a zero gravity mode. You can activate it with a single press of the button right on the door panel. Super easy. But here's a little tip. If you want to cancel the zero gravity mode, tapping the button again won't do it. You'll need to press and hold that same button to bring the seat back to normal. But honestly, after actually trying it out, this really isn't what I'd call a true zero gravity seat. By the usual definition, your knees and heart should be on the same horizontal plane. But as you can see here, the recline position in the L90 is still a long way off from that standard. If you're curious what a proper zero gravity seat looks like, check out our reviews of the Deepal S09 or the Li Auto Mega. Those do a much better job. Now, to be fair, there's actually no official definition for a zero gravity seat, so technically you can't really call NIO out for false advertising here. It's more about marketing language than a strict engineering standard. If that still doesn't feel comfy enough for you, well, just fold the front passenger seat all the way down. Now that's gotta hit the spot, right? Now check this out, there are even some surprises tucked along the aisle side of both second row seats. On the left seat, there's a button that pops out 2 foldable cup holders. Super clever and honestly pretty satisfying to use. Meanwhile, on the right seat in that same spot, you'll find 2 little compartments. The smaller one is perfectly sized for the rear entertainment screen remote, and the larger one, great for your phone or any small items you want to keep handy. So yeah, you can really tell NIO put some serious thought into this cabin. It's not just stylish, it's packed with smart, thoughtful details that make a difference day to day. The vertical cabin height reaches 133 meters, offering a spacious and airy feel inside. When you fold down the center armrest in the second row, you're left with an 18 centimeter wide pass-through. And thanks to the completely flat floor, hopping into the third row is super easy. No awkward stepping over anything, no gymnastics required. So here's what I did. I adjusted the second row seat to leave about 20 centimeters of legroom, then climbed into the third row myself. For reference, I'm 1.71 meters tall, and once I got settled in, I still had about 3 fingers, or roughly 5 centimeters, of knee room to spare. There's plenty of foot space under the second row seats too, so I could stretch out and find a comfortable position. The seat height is similar to the second row, but the cushion is a bit shorter, so there's slightly less thigh support. Still, for a third row, this is honestly really solid. And if you move the second row just a little further forward, while keeping the third row seat back slightly reclined, someone around 1.7 meters tall could sit back here for long road trips, no problem. Super impressive stuff. The third row seats also come wrapped in perforated leather, but unlike the first and second rows, they don't have ventilation or massage. Now, usually automakers cheap out a bit back here. They'll swap real leather for synthetic material in the third row. And honestly, I can't tell if the L90's third row seats are real leather or not. That said, the seat backs are power adjustable, which is great. You've got a cup holder on the side armrest and a slot that's just the right size for your phone. Above that, there's a USB-C port, along with buttons for adjusting the seat back angle and turning on seat heating. And running all the way from the front dash to back here, that same wraparound wood trim and ambient lighting strip we saw earlier, so it really ties the cabin together. The recline range on the seat backs isn't huge, but it's good enough to get comfortable. And here's the kicker. Whether the seat is fully upright or leaned all the way back, I still had about 10 centimeters of headroom. So even way back here in the third row, it doesn't feel cramped at all. All right, I think we've just about covered everything, so inside and out. Now, let's talk about a few things I don't love. First off, the battery pack. For such a big vehicle, 85 kilowatt hours just feels a little underwhelming. Even the single motor rear-wheel drive version only gets 605 kilometers of CLTC range, and the all-wheel drive drops that down to 570 kilometers. As of now, there's no official word on whether a 100 kilowatt hours pack will be offered. Then there are a few missing comfort features. The driver's seat doesn't have an extendable thigh support, there's no sunshade for the second row windows, and the left side second row seat misses out on both a leg rest and that handy little tray table. Lastly, let's talk about trim levels. The L60 comes in 4 versions, mainly differentiated by motor layout and battery size, and I wouldn't be surprised if the L90 follows the same playbook. So apart from the power running boards, which we know are optional, most of the features you've seen in this video are likely standard. That's pretty exciting. Now pricing, also pretty compelling. The full purchase price with the 85 kilowatt hours pack is set at 280,000 yuan. And if you go for the battery as a service option, the car itself starts at just 193,900. That announcement actually sent NIO's stock price up by 10%, which shows that investors have a lot of confidence in this model. They see it as a potential comeback car for the brand. And I mean, if all these features really are standard at this price, aside from the limited driver assist hardware, the L90 doesn't seem to have many weak points. It's genuinely competitive. On top of that, with NIO's swappable battery system on board, charging anxiety pretty much goes out the window. Now for international markets, it's a different story. Since battery swapping stations are rare outside of China, I think NIO should swap out the current 3C battery for a 5C fast charging one and launch the L90 globally as soon as possible. In markets where full-size SUVs aren't as saturated as they are in China, the L90 with this level of luxury could even go head-to-head with heavy hitters like the GLS and BMW X7. Alright, that's a wrap for today's video. If you found it helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with a friend, and drop your thoughts in the comments. I'll catch you in the next one.